Good morning, class. This is Mr. Tuttle, and I would like to show you the very basics of Microsoft Excel for accounting purposes for students who have probably not used Excel very much. So we're just going to do some very basic Excel operations so that you can see how they work. So let's assume that you're given this template. It's got columns and rows, headings, various colors, but no data. And so let's enter some data. So let's suppose at the beginning of the accounting period, we are given, say from a textbook problem, that there's $5,000 in cash. So I'm going to enter $5,000 and press enter. And note that I'm going to enter these numbers without entering the commas. Generally, you don't enter the commas in Excel. Let's suppose there's $1,500 of accounts receivable. There's $500 in supplies. There's $6,000 in equipment. There's $4,200 of accounts payable, and there's $8,800 of capital. And so we're supposing these are the beginning balances, say at the end of July 31st. And I'm going to enter July 31st. Now suppose it's August 1. So let me enter August 1 as a date. I'm going to enter 8/1/2017. And suppose there's a particular accounting transaction. And suppose the transaction is collected $1,200 of accounts receivable. And that means collected in cash. So cash is going to increase by $1,200. And accounts receivable is going to decrease by $1,200. And notice for this purpose, I'm not entering this decrease as a negative, but I'm going to do a calculation to get it to be negative. So starting with the cash has increased. And well, I certainly could enter the calculation 5,000 plus 1,200 equals 6,200. I could enter the 6,200 doing the calculation in my head. Obviously, it would be more efficient if we let Excel do the calculation for us. Most calculations begin with an equal sign. I'm going to move the cursor up to that cell, B7, because that's the first part of the calculation. I'm going to enter the plus sign, and then I'm going to move the cursor to cell B8, the second part. So Excel has added the contents of those two cells, and this is now what cell B9 looks like. B9 says equals B7 plus B8. So cell B9 has this Excel formula. It doesn't have the numbers in it, but it has the cell references. I'm going to do a similar thing with accounts receivable, except I want to do a subtraction. So I'm going to move the cell to D7, then a minus sign, D8, and it did the calculation. Its current balance is 300. For all the other items, there's no transaction for that period. But rather than copy each of those numbers, I'm going to use Excel formulas to carry them forward. I'm going to say equal, move the cursor up, equal, move the cursor up, and I'm pressing enter after each, when I'm finished with each calculation. Move the cursor up, equals, move the cursor up. So I've carried forward the balances of these four rows which didn't change on August 1st. Let's do one more transaction. Let's assume on August 2nd, and I'll just put a 2 here for the date since it's the same month. Let's assume on August 2nd, I'm paying $2,800 for an account payable. So I had owed this $4,200. I'm now going to pay $2,800 off. So it's like paying on my credit card. So this is also a cash transaction of $2,800. But now I want to affect the accounts payable column. So now for cash, my new balance is going to be a subtraction. So I'm going to say equal sign, go to the prior balance, minus the 2,800 cell, and its new balance is 3,400. Accounts payable is also a subtraction. I'm paying off some of this debt, moving the cursor to the prior balance, a minus sign, 2,800, and its new balance is 1,400. The other accounts haven't changed, so I'm going to say equals, move the cursor up, equals, move the cursor up, equals, move the cursor up, equals, move the cursor up. So those are the new balances after August 2nd after those calculations. So I've shown you how to enter data without commas, how to do a simple formula with addition and a simple formula with a subtraction, and how to use the equal sign to carry forward. Now let's do a slightly more complicated calculation. Suppose I want to add the balance at the end of July 31st of these four asset items. So I could say equals, move the cursor here, a plus sign, move the cursor here, another plus sign, move the cursor here, another plus sign, move the cursor here, and enter. And so that tells me the balance was 13,000. Now suppose I also want the balance after that first transaction. Well, I could certainly do the exact same process. I could start with an equal sign and move those and enter four cells with four plus signs and get a very similar formula. But I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to use the copy-paste feature. I'm going to start with the cursor on this cell, and I'm going to click on the copy command. Sorry, I think I moved the cursor here. Start with the cursor on this cell, enter the copy command, move the cursor to this cell, and enter the paste command, and I'll take this first one. And let's see what it did. So the original formula was equals B7 plus D7 plus F7 plus H7. What's now in this cell is equals B9 plus D9 plus F9 plus H9. So what I've done is I've copied the formula, but I've sort of copied it in this relative basis. And by that I mean I've copied the formula, changing the formula by incrementing each of these sevens by the fact that I've gone down 2. So these sevens are 9s. And these 9s now refer to B9, D9, F9, H9. So I really didn't copy the numbers, I copied the formula. And I'm going to do that one more time with the next balance. So my cursor is here. I'm going to click on the copy command. I'm going to move the cursor here. I'm going to click on the paste command. And once again, it pasted the formula. So it incremented the formula by changing the 9s to 11s. The numbers are different this time. Really, this second 13,000, it's only coincidentally the same as the first. This one, the numbers changed, but the numbers are indeed the sum of 3,400 plus 300 plus 500 plus 6,000. And so this copying and pasting of formulas is certainly the efficient way to copy formulas, especially if you're going to do this numerous times. Let's assume that's all the transactions for the month, and now we want to create a balance sheet. So at this point, we want the current balance of cash. So I'm going to say equals, and here's the current balance. So equals cell B11 is 3,400. Accounts receivable, its current balance is 300. Supplies, its current balance is 500. Equipment, its current balance is 6,000. And now suppose I want to add those 4 items. Now you've just learned that I could do an equal sign and then this item plus this plus this plus this and so on. But here's a different way to do that, particularly when the items you want to add are in adjoining columns or rows. I'm going to say the equal sign, and then I'm going to use the command SUM for sum. It can be either uppercase or lowercase. Left parentheses. I'm going to start with the cursor at 3,400. Then I'm just going to drag the cursor into the 4 items I want, release the cursor, and enter a right parentheses. And now I've added these 4 items. Their sum is 10,200, which does agree with that. Just to finish the balance sheet, I have no notes payable. I do have accounts payable of 1,400. My total liabilities at this point are the same 1,400 because there are no notes payable. If I wanted to include the possibility that there had been notes payable, I could say equals sum, left parentheses, and I'll drag the cursor here. And that's giving me the sum of my liabilities. Finally, the capital is 8,800. I'm going to enter that. And now I like to add my liabilities of 1,400 plus my capital of 8,800. It's 10,200, which does agree with the assets. Now, what is the advantage of entering all these Excel formulas rather than the numbers themselves? I mean, I certainly could have done the calculation myself on this 6,200 and so on. But suppose I had entered one of these numbers in error. Suppose this 1,200 number is incorrect and maybe should have been 120. If I enter the 120 now, this number automatically corrects itself because it's a formula based on the numbers above. This number, oops, sorry. This number also automatically corrects itself because it's based on the numbers above. This one automatically corrected itself. This one self-corrected. This one self-corrected. And in fact, all the formulas which involve this entry automatically correct itself by changing one of the inputs. If I had entered not a formula here, but the calculation, then I would have to go back and fix all these individual calculations, which need to change. So I'm going to put this back at 1200, and watch quickly that you'll see that many cells will change. So that's what I wanted to do at this point, is show you some very simple Excel calculations. You'll be doing these in your work. It's not hard. Excel is an extremely powerful tool. I've just shown you a few things you can do with it. You can do some really complicated calculations, and for people who are used to using Excel, they can't imagine how they got along without it all these years. So thanks and good luck.